Monday. Hope everyone's feeling well. Take a look at disclosure. You guys know the drill. My name is Scott Redler. I'm the Chief Strategic Officer of T3Live.com. Welcome to today's morning call. I'm not sure why I'm in the dark. I'm trying to get the light going here, but it's fine. As long as you see the charts, you don't need to see my face. You can hear my voice. All is well. All is well. So anyway, I was out Thursday afternoon into Friday. I definitely managed some trades from the road, and it wasn't easy. Thursday, before leaving, I got stopped out of a few things. Some things I was able to hold. Then all of a sudden, Thursday afternoon, things reversed. SPYs, small caps, kind of dragged up tech. They kind of put Oracle in the penalty box. And then when Avago came out on Thursday and they talked about their margins, they sold Avago down. And if you thought, hey, maybe they'll do it again on Friday, well, they didn't. They rolled every long out there. By 11 o'clock, I feel like the SPYs and the Qs took out the upper range and then kind of repaired a little bit. Some things did act pretty well, like Tesla acted really well. Some things acted well. I did stay with a few things. Some of the January effect plays, like, it wasn't all bad. It just was hard. This market's getting a little hard, so don't put yourself in a position to put yourself in a really bad mood going into the holidays, or don't screw up your year or your December or your quarter. It's been very easy to to lose a little bit of money and get frustrated. But anyway, you look at here the SPYs. SPYs hit a low of 679.17 on Friday. It went below the whole range and then came up a little bit. But really, all it did is hit the 21-day. It's just a matter of the type of trade. If you're in it thinking you're going to get a bull flag breakout on Thursday, Friday, just wasn't ready. Anyway, so for today, the question is going to be is early strength going to hold or not? And 685, which is right around here, that's almost halfway back, right? Because it was at 689 from 679. So if the bears have any power, they probably reject price here. If you went out short, I get it. A lot of people are like, Red Dog, why aren't you getting short? The tech's leading us slower. The Mag 7's crap. I'm like, I just don't need to go home short. I'm like, it's not what I really do. I'm not great at it. I stayed, goodness, I stayed with some names that worked for me, and I'm just trying to do some smart things that were not too far out there, and make some money and stack some days. So anyway, so if you want to short, you would think you could short 685-ish today, unless all of a sudden they just roll right through it. I don't know if there will be, but we'll look for some signals of that. The Qs also, the Qs are weaker. So the Qs right now, if you look at the Qs, all the Qs is getting back to where that low was, like 618. That was Thursday, so this was Friday. So this is 618-ish, and then this high is 623. Um, if all of a sudden 618 gets rejected, that'll show you how weak tech is. But it could go through 618 and then squeeze towards 620 and then come in. So you just got to be a little careful there, on what you want to do as far as, is it going to get better or not? All this did is hit the 50-day, went below the 50-day a bunch of times, but still, again, it's just how active are you? IWM, that's, this is where they say the money's going to flow for the next month or two or three. So, at this point, see if it holds 252 and, holds the morning gains. The IWM is, up 2. So to 255 was at 258. So see how it builds here. Can't say the XLE is doing great at all. Everyone's so high on XLE that it's going to be the place to be, and looked pretty good. I'm still in some options. I would say in order for this to keep my interest, it's got to stay above this 45. It gets below 45, and chances are, I'm not going to be so active there, and I'll have to wait again. Banks have been pretty good. JP Morgan, some of you guys are still in this one, didn't pull in. 313 is a stop. Morgan, some of you are still in. Gave you a first day to probably say, hey, could pull in. But again, if you look, it still didn't even get to the 8-day. That's how extended some of these banks were. We put this on here back around 171, 172. That was a nice move. Where did it hit? It hit 181.98. What a big move. So the banks, now people are saying, oh, the banks are going to be the place to be. Why? The banks weren't the place to be in 2025. Yeah, they were. I didn't trade them a lot, but they're always on my go-to list depending on the setup. But anyway, let's move on. So what acted best? I'm just going to go right to it. Tesla acted best. If you look at this chart, we've been waiting for it to really get going, and it's tough. Like, it has a good day, and then it kind of pushes you back, and then has a good day and then pushes you back. It hasn't been like a good day and then follow through. And right now it's I would say it's having a little follow through, not a whole lot. It's just a little. Yeah, you could say this is follow through. Anyway, I am long TSLL from last week. I'm long Tesla calls from last week, and I bought a little Tesla shares this morning, lower, thinking, hey, we're above 463. I got to put this on, because I can't have my first buy of Tesla shares at 470 or 474. That looks like it's where it's going. It gets above 474, and then the high from you know from last year, December 18th, almost a year ago. So it's back to the same spot. If you held it for a year, you're almost even. No, I'm kidding. We've traded the hell out of this thing. It's been really good to us. Look at the weekly chart. The weekly chart looks really good. So to me, this looks like one of the only names in Mag 7 name land that's worth holding and massaging and staying with. And it feels like it was a day away from changing. Every one of these names have been like a day away from looking awesome to, oh, it's over. That's how freaking flimsy this market is, I guess. But anyway, Tesla looks good. I'm gonna hold the share. I'm gonna hold the options. So this is what I have. I don't have a whole lot going on here. I'm gonna hold. I trimmed a little bit of this into strength. I'm gonna stay with the options through, through 1226, because if it breaks out, I have to have that. I did trim a little bit of the shares. It says buy, but I trimmed it this morning. And I don't have a lot going on here. MSOS was a good trade from Friday. Anyway, we are getting like some economic numbers that didn't happen because with the government shutdown. I don't know how much people are going to really care. There's the Qs again. Here's the SPYs again. Again, 685.50. Someone's like, are you going to sell any premium? I don't know. I have no hedges on at all. I'm not sure. Maybe I would sell the 687s for tomorrow just to have something, to trade the range and re-engage it. But we'll see. But Tesla is the only one that looks really good. Apple looks fair. It definitely, stopped some guys out that had it at, 276. If you didn't get stopped out, put your stop at 273.81. It's going sideways here. Maybe it gets better above 280. So that's something to think about. And then everything else is really just like taking its time in tech land. It's really hard, to be in there with any kind of size. Google stopped a lot of guys out at 314. Broke 309, went to 305. I think now 314 is probably a better sell than a buy. Amazon, horrible. Not horrible, just not great, I guess. Broke 229. You have 225.11 here to trade against. Nothing's great there. Ever since breaking this upper wedge, you've had, you just have trades. They're just little small trades. Who knows? Maybe this gets a little inside action and becomes an inside range. Ethereum reportedly launches its first tokenized money market fund on a. All right, we'll see. Anyway, that's Amazon. Netflix, I did buy some options, thinking maybe they, the more it gets beat up, the better the bounce could be if they want to, X out of the deal. But doesn't seem like much of that is happening. Netflix, it's up a little bit. It's up 77 cents. Just it was a small trade. It worked a little bit. Meta really hard. I don't even know what happened here with this data sequence trade, but if you were in it, you got stopped out at 660. So now you have 638. Microsoft's doing nothing. Maybe a long versus 475, but it's nothing so compelling there. Nvidia's been bent and breaking. We had that one good trade here, sold it. I don't think I've traded it since. Pretty bearish candle. So if you're a bear, this is your time, I guess. But it's not even easy for you guys. But you would think that 177. There's room to this area. I wouldn't buy Nvidia up $2. Can you sell it here? You may be able to short it here. Maybe wait till 179, but it might not get there. You look at Oracle, held 185. I guess some guys might be long versus 185. I think it's just a hard trade. It's been hard. You had this one big gap up, and everybody's been trying to make money there since, and it hasn't been easy. Avago also gapped down. Now it's needs to rebuild or do whatever it's going to do. So I'm not even going to trade these names unless there's like a perfect setup now. Anyway, They're redoing the Nasdaq 100. They're adding. This is from Todd. Todd's good with some of his research. So what does Todd say? The annual reconstitution. They're putting WDC in it. Okay. 20 seconds. We got some time. They're adding ALNY, FINSM, MPWRs. Yeah, ST. Seagate and Western Digital. They've been really good names. I haven't really been trading them. Let's see what Western Digital. Yeah, really strong. I used to trade this back in the 90s. Wow, if you were an investor in this thing, you've made a friggin' fortune. That looks good. Anyway, back to Nvidia, Vago, Oracle, all broken names. So the question is, where could we go and where could we sit and where could we hold? There's not a lot of them out there. Some of you guys bought Dash versus 216. That was not easy to do either. Now it's kind of rebuilding here. ASTS was a great trade, but it needs some time. From 57 up towards 85. Now it's going to rebuild above 74. Iron was not good. That hurt actually. So I don't know. I wouldn't do anything with it here now. Maybe it holds, maybe it doesn't. It could see the 200-day if it wanted to. If this area gets a little weaker. Where's iron today? Probably up $1.20, 17 cents. Not even. Wow. So there's again, I don't think you should need to be scattered or spread out. Like really be focused on what's working and not everything else, because not a lot is working here. NBIS, broke here also. Decent bounce back to 103, and then gold and silver working. But again, you can't chase things. Like if you chase silver and bought it on Friday, you got probably stopped out. In my note, I said it was a sell, not a buy. If you bought the dip, now it's up. But all in all, what did it do? It didn't even test the 8-day. It was just extended. But a candle like this probably gets people short or out at least. Somebody's going, should I short silver? I'm like, you might want to trim it, but just because it's down one day doesn't mean you need to short it. And if you're coming in short silver, you just got to be careful. It's 57.82. I would use 58.56 as you're out. Power plays is in GLD. I had a good sale on mine. It was up like $5, and then it faded with everything else. I didn't buy it back. Power plays is still in 2/3. I'll probably sell a third and then hold the rest for it to clear 403. Bitcoin itself is held 88,000, so it's holding on by by a thread. A thread. I thought it was going to break it. It didn't. Thank goodness. Otherwise, we'd probably be down. 80,000, 83, 80. It held 88. This is the big spot. If it doesn't hold 88, then it's probably going to bring everything else down with it, or or some things, I guess. Lily. Okay. Yeah, Lily came in, went below the 21, then came back above. Lily's been, a little tough. It was down like, 14 days in a row. Finally perked up a little bit, so that's cool. Something to do. Someone asked me about Pfizer. Well, Pfizer's a little bit more interesting. We still have $26 calls on. That'd be great if this was able to do something. Ford, yeah, Ford helped a little bit. We had options on. I had a nice little move above here. If you made money in the options, we bought them at like 7 cents. I sold them up to 28 cents. So there were some things. Rivian looks pretty good. Breaking out above 18. They had their event day. So again, not everything. I would think Path is worth a look. From 1984 down to 1742. A lot of you guys made really good money. We had options on here, and I sold them all into that spot. Not a bad spot to probably buy some, or if you want to be in it for next year, try some. MSOS, we'll see if Trump comes through today to declassify it. Nice candle. If you had options on, I think a lot of you guys had options on for January. You got paid. I actually bought the stock back around 505, and I sold some into 6. That was a nice trade. I'm still in it. The CYBN we visited a few times. I spoke to some of my friends who own this a lot higher. I'm talking like, hundreds of thousands of shares, probably in the 14 area. Do some homework on it. A lot of big holders in this. They think it's a very big 2026, 2027 story. A lot of it has to do with microdosing, and I know some people don't like to talk about like mushrooms and those kind of names and this and that, but I'm just saying, if the cannabis sector is in good shape next year, just do some homework on this. It says more on psychedelics, but I've been doing some events lately with Red Dog Mindset on longevity and stuff like that, and so many people are drinking a lot less, and they're all microdosing, and some people are even taking microdosing for early onset dementia and memory and stuff. So if it continues, this is considered one of those names, and it was a lot higher. So getting it down here in the 750s, maybe next year's it can have some traction. So just do your own homework. It's probably not a trade. It's probably more like you got to buy it, put it in a drawer, and if it does trade better, I'll stay in it. But I'm just saying anyway. This isn't the 70s though. This isn't that's what it's trying to get away from. It's trying to get away from the LSD, the this to that. This is like, this is kind of different. But anyway, with that being said, let's move on. What else? What else? Some of you guys are in this IM and M. Congratulations. I know this was a big DP stock. We tried it a bunch of times. It was really hard. But again, just like an ASTS where it takes time, it takes time, it takes time. It took time and technically got better here, and it's been good since. And now it's up 25%. If you're in calls or stock, congratulations, trim some. This 24, 25 looks like an area. Sometimes they sell the news. Hopefully they don't do that here. And if they do, you got to make sure to take some off. But congratulations. And if you have conviction in the name and you build a big position, that's sometimes how you build wealth. Cisco day is tomorrow. All right, Cisco's been pretty good, besides obviously the last 2 days like everything else. Everything got kind of hit, especially in tech. Below the 8-day. Cisco day. I might actually be speaking for Cisco soon. Win the morning to win the day. They want to get their mind right too and learn how to get in a sauna and an ice barrel and count down and get their morning set. They're pretty high achievers there too. Anyway, so this was the last time I think I traded it. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, with that said, I would just, let's see what happens with the spies here. Does the early morning strength get rejected? If you're coming in short, maybe try and fade a little bit. And if all of a sudden a first kiss we fade and then things hold in there and things start to penetrate levels, just don't get stubborn. We know this market has a hard time with muscle memory, and sometimes it changes from one day to the next. So make sure you're flexible. 85, if it gets above 685.50, chances are, same way they didn't care about these two candles, they may not care about that candle. And if the Qs get above, just say again, 618-ish, then we'll see what the next spot is. They can get, can still get back. This is 623. And what is this? This is 621. Remember, 621 was a big spot that it broke, so 621 is also a spot. I have to go to the city today. Today is the T3 Christmas party. I have my stuff, so I'm going to be here until about 11:30, and then I have to jump in a car and go into the city. We have to do meetings, end of the year type stuff, but I will be probably doing a recap from there. Hopefully I can manage a bunch of stuff. It'd be really nice if Tesla could hold and push and stay special today versus, going from green to red. That would kind of suck, but we'll see how it goes. All right, let's stack some days this week and have a great week. I'll see you on the radio in about 15 minutes. I have XMSR at 9 o'clock.